The aged canvas, brittle with the passage of 140 years, held within its faded pigments a secret far more profound than anyone could have imagined. Upon first glance, it was a quintessential 1881 family portrait, a stern-faced patriarch, his serene wife, and their three rosy-cheeked children, all gazing with quiet dignity from their gilded frame. Yet, as the restoration process began, a whisper of an anomaly, a subtle discrepancy in the layers of paint, hinted at something extraordinary, something that challenged the very narrative the painting presented. This was no mere portrait. It was a palimpsest of lives, a visual testament to a deeply veiled moment in history, and its true story was about to be painstakingly uncovered. Before we delve deeper into this incredible journey of artistic forensic investigation, I invite you to subscribe to the channel. Hit that notification bell so you don't miss a single stroke of this historical revelation, or any of the other fascinating art mysteries we unravel together. Your support keeps these stories alive and allows us to bring you more untold tales from the world of art and history. Our story's protagonist, the woman destined to unlock this painting's hidden truth, was Dr. Evelyn Reed. Her name resonated with quiet reverence within the hallowed halls of art conservation. She wasn't just a restorer, she was an art historian, a chemist, and, most importantly, a detective. Her hands, nimble and precise, had brought countless masterpieces back from the brink of decay, her keen eyes discerning the whispers of time etched onto canvas and wood. Evelyn had established her modest but state-of-the-art studio in a charming, historic town, a place where cobblestone streets and centuries-old brick buildings seemed to hum with forgotten stories. Her reputation preceded her, built on a meticulous attention to detail and an almost intuitive understanding of the materials and methods of past masters. Each brushstroke, each crackle in the varnish spoke to her, revealing tales of creation and survival. The 1881 family portrait arrived at her studio shrouded in protective layers, its wooden crate bearing the wear and tear of a long journey. The accompanying documentation confirmed its provenance, detailing its passage through generations of the same family. As Evelyn carefully unveiled the canvas, a faint, musty scent of age hung in the air. Her initial assessment was thorough, methodical. She illuminated the painting with raking light, studying its surface for structural damage, tears, or areas of significant paint loss. The canvas itself, a finely woven linen, showed the expected stretcher marks and minimal sag, typical for a piece of its era. The paint layer, however, was uniform in its degradation. A fine, almost imperceptible network of craquelure, like tiny spider webs, covered the surface, a natural consequence of the paint drying and contracting over decades. The varnish, a moderately discolored natural resin, obscured some of the finer details and muted the vibrancy of the original palette. But it wasn't overly thick or heavily degraded. She noted areas of minor abrasion, particularly around the frame's edges, and some surface grime that dulled the portrait's overall presence. A routine restoration, she mused, sketching out her treatment plan. The plan detailed careful surface cleaning, stabilization of any flaking paint, consolidation of the canvas, followed by varnish removal and eventual re-varnishing. It was a standard procedure for a painting of this age and condition, a predictable sequence of conservation steps designed to preserve the artwork and reveal its original brilliance. There was nothing in her initial, highly trained observation to suggest anything beyond the ordinary challenges of restoring an antique oil painting. No glaring repairs, no obvious overpainting, no stark alterations that screamed for immediate investigation. The portrait seemed, on the surface, to be exactly what it purported to be, a stately depiction of a Victorian family, untouched by history's more dramatic interventions. Yet, as she prepared her tools, a subtle, almost imperceptible hum of curiosity began to resonate within her, a faint intuition that perhaps, just perhaps, this painting held more than met the eye. The true work, the work of discovery, was just beginning. The air in Dr. Reed's studio, usually a sanctuary of quiet focus, now hummed with a subtle, almost imperceptible tension. As she methodically began the delicate cleaning process on the 1881 family portrait, her initial assessment of routine restoration began to fray. Her specialized micro lenses, meticulously positioned, brought the surface into stark, magnified relief, revealing intricacies the naked eye could never discern. It was during this painstaking examination of the mother's face, a serenely composed figure at the center of the family tableau, that her expert eye caught something amiss. Beneath the seemingly uniform veneer of aged varnish and grime, subtle abnormalities began to surface. Fine lines, barely visible, seemed to contradict the underlying brushwork, almost as if painted over something else. These were not the typical crack patterns of an old canvas, nor the natural degradation of pigments over time. Instead, Dr. Reed detected an unusual layering, a thickness in certain areas that felt deliberate. The anomalies were particularly pronounced around the mother's eyes and the delicate curve of her mouth, areas that in any portrait are crucial to conveying emotion and identity. It wasn't a sloppy overpainting, which would have been immediately obvious. This was a masterful concealment, executed with skill that almost rivaled the original hand. Yet, the anachronisms, however subtle, persisted. A slight variation in pigment density, a whisper of a different tonal quality peeking through, an unexpected resistance as her cotton swab glided across the surface. All these minute details coalesced into a growing suspicion. The conflict in her mind intensified with each careful stroke. The initial layers of paint, particularly in the areas of suspicion, proved unusually thick and more vexingly resistant to her standard, gentle cleaning solutions. This wasn't simply a matter of removing surface dirt. It felt like excavating through strata of artistic intent. Her usual solvents, carefully pH tested and applied with surgical precision, seemed to struggle against this particular overlay, threatening to abrade the visible artwork if pressed too aggressively. This added a critical layer of risk to the restoration. The core principle of her work was always preservation, ensuring the integrity of the original creation. To proceed recklessly might damage the very masterpiece she was entrusted to protect. The obstacle was clear. She was dealing with an artist who had intended this overpainting to be permanent, to seamlessly blend with the original, and to defy detection. Determined to understand the nature of this resistance, Dr. Reed paused her cleaning efforts. She meticulously documented her findings, sketching the areas of unusual thickness and noting the specific reactions of the paint layers to various solvents. Her studio transformed from a restoration lab into a research archive. She dove into historical records, poring over art historical texts and treatises on portraiture techniques of the late 19th century. Were such alterations common? Was it plausible that a family might recommission a portrait for cosmetic reasons, or to update a family member's appearance without commissioning an entirely new painting? Sometimes patrons would have minor changes made, a different dress, an adjusted hairstyle, but an entire facial alteration was a far more significant undertaking, especially one so meticulously hidden. She then shifted to photographic comparisons. She accessed vast digital archives of 19th century portraiture, scrutinizing examples from prominent studios and lesser-known artists alike. She sought out stylistic similarities, techniques for glazing, and methods for touch-ups or overpainting prevalent in the era. While some degree of alteration was not unheard of, particularly for damaged areas or minor touch-ups, the systemic, skilled overpainting she was observing on the mother's face felt different. It was too thorough, too carefully integrated to be a mere adjustment. It suggested a more profound reason, a narrative hidden beneath the surface. Her research led her down various rabbit holes: the economics of art commissions in the late 19th century, the social pressures on wealthy families to maintain a certain image, even anecdotal accounts of artistic practices where corrections sometimes involve painting entirely new elements. She considered the possibility of a damaged section being expertly repaired by a different artist. Yet the consistent nature of the brushwork in the overpainted area suggested a single skilled hand, likely the original artist or someone equally accomplished, not a patchwork repair. This deepened the enigma. Why go to such lengths to obscure rather than replace or simply paint a new portrait? The more she delved, the more a singular hypothesis began to form, still nascent and unconfirmed, but persistent. This wasn't a repair nor a simple touch-up. This was a deliberate act of concealment, an artistic palimpsest where one identity had been carefully, almost reverently, placed over another. The implications were immense. If her suspicions were correct, this painting wasn't just a representation of a family in 1881. It was a testament to a hidden story, a secret locked within the canvas for over a century. The thought sent a thrill of intellectual excitement mixed with a profound sense of responsibility through her. She knew, with unwavering certainty, that she was on the precipice of uncovering something far greater than a routine restoration. The portrait held not just paint and canvas, but a whispered secret waiting for the right moment and the right hands to bring it to light. As Dr. Reed continued to meticulously work, the subtle inconsistencies she had initially perceived around the mother's face on the canvas began to escalate into a full-blown mystery. The optical microscope had offered tantalizing glimpses, but its limitations in penetrating layers of paint effectively meant she needed more advanced tools. It was time to call upon the lab's spectral analysis equipment, a sophisticated machine capable of revealing what the human eye, even aided by magnification, could not. She carefully positioned the portrait on the analysis table, adjusting the lights and calibrating the sensors. The hum of the machinery filled the quiet lab, a symphony of scientific curiosity. The results, displayed on the monitor in a kaleidoscope of false colors, were nothing short of astonishing. Across the area where the mother's face was painted, a distinct, underlying facial structure emerged from beneath the surface layers. It wasn't just a faint outline, it was a clear, undeniable visage of a completely different individual, distinct in every feature. The shape of the eyes, the curve of the lips, the contour of the nose. Even the hairline appeared different. The spectral analysis confirmed her suspicions with irrefutable scientific evidence. There was another face, another person, hidden beneath the visible portrait. This wasn't merely an artistic correction or a simple touch-up. This was an entirely separate image, intentionally obscured. Dr. Reed leaned back, a mixture of profound intrigue and a slight, unsettling chill washing over her. This discovery transcended the typical challenges of restoration. This wasn't just about preserving art. It was about unearthing a secret, potentially a deeply personal and emotional one, embedded within the very fabric of history. Her heart quickened with a thrill that only true historical puzzles could ignite. The implications were immense, not just for the artistic value of the portrait, but for the narrative of the family it depicted. Who was this hidden person? Why was she painted over? The questions swirled, demanding answers. The serene smile of the visible mother now seemed to conceal a poignant silence, a silent testament to a forgotten story. The professional distance Dr. Reed usually maintained with her subjects began to blur. She felt a growing connection to this silent, obscured figure, a yearning to give voice to her existence, however brief or tragic it might have been. This wasn't just a repair job anymore, it was an archaeological dig into the emotional landscape of a forgotten past. The weight of this revelation settled upon her, transforming the routine task into a sacred duty. She felt a deep responsibility to unveil the truth with the utmost care and respect, understanding that behind every brushstroke lay human lives and complex emotions. Driven by this newfound sense of purpose, Dr. Reed initiated a meticulous and expansive research effort into the family's lineage. The client had provided some basic genealogical information when commissioning the restoration, but it was nowhere near detailed enough to explain such a significant alteration. She delved into historical archives, microfiche records, and digital databases, searching for any anomalies, any gaps, any unusual events in the family's documented history around 1881. She looked for clues that might shed light on why a family would go to such lengths to modify a portrait in such a fundamental way. She focused her research on records of births, deaths, marriages, and property transfers. Were there records of a previous marriage that ended abruptly? Had a child been born and then lost, prompting the painting of a new, different mother? Or perhaps an adoption, where a new matriarch took the place of a biological one, socially, if not biologically? Every detail, no matter how small, became a potential thread in this intricate tapestry of the past. The thought of a tragic loss weighed heavily on her mind. The decision to paint over an existing portrait rather than commission a new one suggested a desire to preserve some continuity, perhaps to spare the children the emotional upheaval of a completely new artwork. The online genealogical platforms became her constant companion, cross-referencing information and constructing family trees. She spent hours sifting through census data, local newspaper archives, and church records, searching for any mention of a significant event that coincided with the portrait's creation. The family, a prominent one in their town, had left a considerable paper trail. But finding the specific piece of information that would unlock this mystery was like searching for a needle in a haystack, a very old, very dusty haystack. She explored the social conventions of the late 19th century. Was it common for families to alter portraits after a spouse's death or remarriage? While some minor alterations were known, the complete repainting of a face was highly unusual and resource-intensive, suggesting a powerful motivation. It implied a story of profound emotional significance, perhaps even social pressure, or a desire to maintain a certain image within the community. The visible mother in the portrait exuded an aura of calm, maternal authority. Had the original figure been more fragile, more sorrowful, reflecting a different, perhaps more turbulent chapter in the family's life? Dr. Reed considered the possibility of a scandal, a figure erased from public memory, her image literally painted over to remove her from the official family narrative. But the nature of the overpainting, the careful way the second face had been applied, suggested a more tender, perhaps mournful act rather than a punitive one. It felt less like an obliteration and more like a gentle, if sorrowful, transition. The artistic precision of the overlay indicated respect, not disregard. The layers of paint protected not just the artistic integrity of the work, but also, she now surmised, a cherished, albeit painful, memory. The research spiraled into connecting with historical societies and local historians in the town where the family had resided. She described the nature of her discovery in general terms, careful not to reveal too much before fully understanding the context, but enough to pique their interest. She hoped that local folklore or forgotten records might hold the key. This wasn't just about art history anymore. It was profoundly human history, begging to be reconstructed piece by painstakingly researched piece. The excitement of nearing a potential breakthrough fueled her relentless investigation. Every document, every anecdotal lead, brought her closer to understanding the hidden truth of the 1881 family portrait. Her persistent inquiries into the town's past began to yield fragmented historical documents and local anecdotes that painted a clearer, yet still incomplete picture. Old town council records, long relegated to dusty archives, contained oblique references to a period of significant local tragedy around the exact time the portrait was commissioned in 1881. Mentions of a virulent illness, a rapid succession of losses within prominent families, and a general air of somber reflection permeated the brittle pages. One particular local newspaper clipping, yellowed with age and meticulously preserved, spoke of the profound grief experienced by the community following the unexpected passing of several young mothers in quick succession. While it didn't name the family directly, the timeline and social standing aligned uncannily with the family depicted in the portrait. Another anecdote, relayed by an elderly town historian who remembered tales passed down through generations, spoke of a respected widower who, after a period of intense mourning, remarried to ensure his children had a mother figure. The story described the second wife as a kind and gentle soul, eager to embrace her new role, but always respectful of the memory of her predecessor. This particular detail resonated deeply with Dr. Reed. It offered a compelling human explanation for the artistic alteration. The second wife, in an act of dedication and perhaps even humility, might have requested to be seamlessly integrated into the existing family tableau, not as a replacement, but as a continuation, subtly honoring the past while embracing the present. The notion of a forgotten individual within the family's saga began to solidify, not through malice or scandal, but through overwhelming grief and a subsequent desire for healing and stability. Dr. Reed's hypothesis started to crystallize. The original mother depicted either passed away tragically or, less likely but still a possibility, left the family under circumstances deemed inappropriate for public record. However, the emerging historical context strongly favored the former, a tragic loss. She theorized that following the death of the first mother, the father, perhaps driven by love, memory, and the social expectations of the era to provide a complete family unit, arranged for a new figure to be painted directly over the original. This wasn't an act of erasure, she mused, but a complex emotional and social maneuver. It preserved the cherished memory of the children's birth mother in a subtle, almost secret way, while simultaneously presenting the new family structure to the world without the expense or delay of commissioning an entirely new large-scale portrait. It was a compromise, a bridge between grief and new beginnings, a silent testament to love and adaptation. The very act of overpainting indicated a desire to maintain the continuity of the family unit, preserving an outward image of stability while harboring a private sorrow. This delicate balance, however, presented an unprecedented technical challenge for Dr. Reed. The selective removal of paint layers to reveal the hidden face without damaging both the underlying original and the overlaying portrait was an artistic tightrope walk of immense difficulty. She couldn't simply strip the top layer uniformly. That would compromise the visible portrait, the very one she was commissioned to restore. Instead, she needed to find a method that would subtly and incrementally dissolve the upper pigments, separating them from the original layer beneath, almost like performing microsurgery on a canvas. She spent days researching new solvent formulations, experimenting on discarded canvases with similar paint compositions from the late 19th century. The goal was to identify a solvent that would preferentially attack the binding medium of the upper layer while leaving the lower pigments relatively untouched. This was a painstaking process requiring precise temperature control, careful application, and constant monitoring under high magnification. Each tiny brushstroke of solvent, each gentle swab, carried the risk of irrevocably damaging decades of history. The pigments of the original portrait, though protected for over a century, remained fragile. The challenge wasn't just about revealing a hidden image, but about preserving both images, allowing the painting to tell its full complex narrative. Dr. Reed meticulously charted her progress, documenting every chemical used, every concentration, every minute detail of the application process. She utilized a high-resolution microscope with an integrated camera, capturing thousands of images, creating a detailed topographical map of the painting's surface. This allowed her to track the slightest changes, to identify areas of particular resistance or vulnerability. The pressure was immense. One wrong move could destroy the very secret she was striving to uncover. But the allure of the untold story, the yearning to give voice to the forgotten face, fueled her unwavering determination. She felt a profound responsibility to the original artist, to the family, and to the woman whose image lay concealed, patiently waiting for her story to be revealed after more than a century of silence. The history beckoned, and Dr. Reed, with her steady hand and keen intellect, was ready to answer. The moment had arrived. Dr. Reed, having exhausted every archival avenue and historical society lead without full satisfaction, knew the time for physical revelation was at hand. She had meticulously analyzed the spectral imaging results, pinpointing areas where the underlying paint layers were thinnest, offering the most judicious entry points for microscopic intervention. Her studio, usually a sanctuary of measured calm, hummed with a different kind of tension, a quiet anticipation that felt almost palpable. She donned her surgical loops, her breath even, her hand steady as she selected a micro-scalpel, its blade impossibly fine. This wasn't about removing paint. It was about negotiating with time, about coaxing secrets from a canvas that had guarded them for over a century. She began on a small, inconspicuous section, an area where the spectral analysis indicated the most significant difference in pigment composition between the two layers, suggesting a high probability of finding the original face. Her technique involved a microscopic application of a precisely formulated solvent, followed by an equally delicate mechanical removal of the softened upper pigment. It was a dance between chemistry and touch, each movement calculated to avoid disturbing the underlying layer. Minutes stretched into an eternity, marked only by the gentle scrape of metal on canvas, a sound almost imperceptible to the ear. Then a breakthrough. A faint line emerged, distinct from the overlaid brushstrokes, indicating the curve of an eyelid. Her heart quickened. As she continued expanding the treated area with painstaking slowness, more features began to materialize from beneath the second mother's likeness. A subtly different brow line, a slightly fuller cheek, a more defined chin. Each detail was a triumph, confirming her earlier spectral findings. The face emerging was undeniably older, perhaps more mature than what she had initially theorized, or perhaps simply possessing a different kind of beauty, a beauty softened by life's experiences. The texture of the paint, too, was subtly different, suggesting not just an alternative hand, but perhaps a slightly different period of application, even if only by a few years. It was undeniably a completely separate individual, her presence slowly reclaiming her space on the canvas. The air in the studio felt charged, as if two timelines, two narratives were finally converging. The emotional impact of each revealed segment was profound. The visible mother in the portrait exuded a gentle, almost placid serenity, a picture of domestic tranquility, but the features Dr. Reed was painstakingly uncovering hinted at something else entirely. The eyes, still partially obscured, seemed to hold a different light. Not sorrow exactly, but a deep, contemplative stillness, perhaps even a hint of melancholy. The mouth, as it slowly came into view, promised a more delicate curve, less overtly cheerful, suggesting a character shaped by more profound experiences. It was a face that spoke of strength, perhaps, but also of a quiet endurance, a silent grace. This wasn't just a physical difference, it was an emotional divergence, a stark contrast in temperament and history. The second mother had been painted to project calm stability, while the first seemed to carry the weight of a deeper, untold story. The subtle differences in expression became a powerful narrative in themselves. The emerging face carried a certain gravitas, a wisdom beyond her apparent years, certainly in contrast to the more open, welcoming visage of the overlay. It suggested a life lived with intensity, perhaps marked by profound joy or devastating loss. Dr. Reed found herself pausing, not just to reapply solvent, but to simply observe, to absorb the silent communication emanating from this ghost of a portrait, now asserting its presence. She felt a growing connection to this unknown woman, this first mother, whose image had been so carefully, so respectfully hidden for generations. Then a crucial piece of information landed on her desk, almost as if the universe were conspiring to illuminate her path. Amidst the dusty archives of a local historical society, a genealogist she had corresponded with stumbled upon a collection of previously uncatalogued family letters. One in particular, written by the patriarch of the family, dated just a few years after the initial commissioning of the portrait, caught their eye. It wasn't explicit, but it contained a poignant phrase that echoed through the centuries, resonating with Dr. Reed's growing understanding of the canvas before her. Though our hearts ache for our lost beloved, we must find strength to preserve her memory, yet move forward for the sake of the children. The words struck Dr. Reed with the force of a revelation. Lost beloved. Preserve her memory, yet move forward. It wasn't just a theory anymore. This felt like a confession, a direct echo from the past explaining the very act she was now uncovering. The letter didn't specify how they chose to preserve her memory while moving forward, but the act of carefully painting over her image rather than destroying the portrait now made profound, heartbreaking sense. They hadn't erased her. They had transformed her presence, allowing a new life to begin while keeping the original cherished image secretly beneath, perhaps as a private testament to their enduring love and grief. The emotional resonance of the letter combined with the visual evidence on the canvas was overwhelming. It wasn't an act of deception, but an act of profound protective love, a testament to a loss so significant it was both acknowledged and hidden within the very fabric of their family portrayal. The hidden face wasn't just a discarded image. It was a deeply held secret, a sorrowful treasure, finally allowed to breathe again. The moment of truth had finally arrived. Days blurred into nights within the hushed confines of her studio, each brushstroke, each delicate solvent application, a testament to Dr. Reed's unwavering focus and surgical precision. The faint, ghostly outlines that spectral analysis had revealed now began to assert themselves with increasing clarity. Slowly, painstakingly, the features of the original mother emerged from beneath the veil of the later portrait. It was a thrilling, almost sacred unveiling. The woman gazing out from the canvas, freed from her painted prison, possessed a striking, almost melancholic beauty. Her eyes, larger and set slightly differently than the overlying image, held a depth that spoke of profound experience, perhaps even sorrow. Her lips were fuller, curved into an expression that was less serene and more contemplative, a stark contrast to the gentle, almost placid smile of the woman painted over her. This was no shadow. This was a fully realized individual, distinct in every aspect from the second mother. Her hair, initially glimpsed as darker, now revealed itself in a deeper auburn, styled in a slightly earlier fashion than the visible portrait suggested. The contours of her face, the gentle curve of her jawline, all confirmed that Dr. Reed's initial findings were not just anomalies, but indeed the deliberate concealment of another human being. The full revelation of the hidden face brought with it a cascade of emotions for Dr. Reed: triumph at her meticulous work, awe at the artistry of the original, and a profound sense of connection to a woman long erased from public memory. The painting had finally given up its most cherished secret, and the silent narrative of a forgotten life began to unfold on the canvas before her. With the first mother's face fully exposed, the historical documents Dr. Reed had painstakingly gathered over the preceding weeks took on a startling new significance. The fragmented census records, the hushed local anecdotes, the cryptic family letters, they all coalesced into a clearer, albeit tragic picture. The family's patriarch had indeed married twice. His first wife, Eleanor, had borne him 2 children, the very young ones depicted in the portrait. But Eleanor, the woman now revealed beneath the layers of paint, had died tragically young, succumbing to a sudden illness that swept through the burgeoning town. Her death, recorded in the town's somber ledgers, had plunged the family into a deep mourning. A year later, the patriarch, a man of considerable standing in the community and burdened with the care of young children, had remarried. His second wife, Martha, was a kind and gentle woman, eager to embrace her new role and provide stability for the grieving family. The decision to paint Martha's image directly over Eleanor's, rather than commissioning an entirely new family portrait, now seemed to make a heartbreaking kind of sense. It wasn't an act of malice or erasure, but perhaps a complex blend of expediency, emotional pragmatism, and a desire to integrate Martha fully into the existing family unit. The children, still young and perhaps struggling with the loss of their birth mother, would see a familiar family scene with their new mother seamlessly integrated. The portrait, initially a testament to Eleanor's motherhood, had been adapted to reflect the family's new reality, a poignant bridge between past and present. Martha, seeking to solidify her position and love for her new family, would have found comfort in being depicted as the central maternal figure, a silent pledge of her commitment to the children Eleanor had left behind. This revelation, however, brought with it a significant ethical dilemma for Dr. Reed. She now held in her hands not just an art historical discovery, but a deeply personal, almost intimate family secret. The painting represented a deliberate choice made by people long gone, a choice to adapt their visual history to suit their emotional and social needs. By restoring Eleanor's face, Dr. Reed was not merely cleaning a canvas, she was unearthing a private grief, a complex family dynamic, and potentially challenging a narrative that had been carefully constructed and maintained for over a century. Was it her place to reveal this to the current descendants, who likely knew nothing of Eleanor, only the serene Martha? The visible portrait of Martha spoke of continuity, of a family moving forward. The newly revealed portrait of Eleanor spoke of loss, of a life tragically cut short, a silent testament to the impermanence of existence. Dr. Reed understood that she was now a custodian of a profound and potentially painful truth. She grappled with the implications of her actions, weighing the academic imperative of historical accuracy against the very human need for cherished, albeit incomplete, narratives. The decision was not just about restoration technique, it was about respect for the dead and empathy for the living. How would the current generation of the family react to discovering they had a hidden ancestor, a first mother painted over, whose memory had been quietly subsumed for generations? Her hands, usually so steady, trembled slightly as she contemplated the weight of this historical secret. The painting, a silent witness to generations, had finally spoken, and its voice was both beautiful and profoundly sad. To tell this story would mean unearthing a layer of the family's past that had been carefully, perhaps even lovingly, concealed. Yet to leave Eleanor hidden would be to deny her existence, to allow the careful erasure of history to persist. The ethical tightrope was slender, but Dr. Reed knew with a quiet certainty that the full truth, however complex, deserved to be known. The portrait's power lay not just in its beauty, but in the layered story it now so eloquently told. She had uncovered a monumental truth. The day finally arrived, heavy with anticipation, as the descendants of the original family gathered at Dr. Reed's studio. They had been invited under the premise of viewing the completed restoration of their ancestral portrait, a piece they knew only as depicting their great-great-grandmother Martha and her children. Dr. Reed felt a familiar tremor of nerves, a mix of excitement and trepidation, as she prepared to unveil not just a restored artwork, but a forgotten chapter of their lineage. The portrait rested on a specially prepared easel, still draped, its secrets held tight beneath the velvet cloth. The family, a group of 5 spanning 3 generations, looked on with polite curiosity, unaware of the profound revelation awaiting them. Dr. Reed began methodically, detailing the painstaking cleaning process, the stabilization techniques, and the general conservation efforts that had brought the 1881 painting back to its former vibrancy. Her voice was calm, professional, yet beneath lay the steady pulse of a storyteller about to deliver her most significant narrative. She carefully explained the unusual thickness of the paint layers around the maternal figure. Describing the initial anomalies that first piqued her curiosity, she spoke of the spectral analysis, the infrared scans, and the delicate chemical solutions, painting a picture of scientific rigor and artistic dedication. And it was during these more advanced stages, she paused, looking directly at the eldest family member, a woman with eyes that held the shadow of generations, that we made an extraordinary discovery. With a deep breath, Dr. Reed reached for the drape. The fabric fell soundlessly, revealing the portrait in all its restored glory. The rich colors, the delicate brush strokes, the serene gaze of Martha, all were now vibrant and clear, But then Dr. Reed directed their attention to a subtly different area, explaining how the nuanced light revealed two distinct layers, particularly around the contour of Martha's face. She then introduced the concept of the hidden mother, detailing the forensic evidence that confirmed the presence of a completely different individual beneath Martha's likeness. She showed them digital overlays, side-by-side comparisons of Eleanor's partially revealed features with known photographic techniques of the era, illustrating the stark difference in facial structure, hair, and even the subtle curve of the lips. The room fell silent, a palpable stillness hanging in the air. The initial shock registered on their faces: confusion, disbelief, then a dawning comprehension. The eldest woman gasped softly, her hand instinctively rising to her mouth. A younger woman, perhaps a granddaughter, leaned forward, her eyes wide with a mixture of awe and bewilderment. Dr. Reed then transitioned to the historical context she had so painstakingly uncovered. She gently recounted the story of Eleanor, the first wife, who had passed tragically young, leaving behind young children and a grieving husband. She spoke of the father's subsequent marriage to Martha, a woman who stepped into a ready-made family, and the nuanced decision to integrate her image into the existing family portrait, symbolically cementing her role. "We believe," Dr. Reed concluded, her voice soft but firm, "that this was not an act of erasure, but rather a deeply human response to loss and the desire for continuity. Martha, embracing her new family, was painted over Eleanor, preserving the visual narrative of a complete family unit, while perhaps also honoring Eleanor's memory in a way that allowed the family to move forward." The words hung in the air, transforming the static canvas into a vibrant narrative, a living testament to love, loss, and the intricate tapestry of human relationships. The family was initially stunned, processing the magnitude of what Dr. Reed had laid before them. Then a quiet murmur began. The eldest woman, her voice trembling with emotion, spoke first. "My grandmother. She used to tell stories, not openly, you understand, but whispers, hints about a first mother. A beautiful, sad woman named Eleanor. We always thought it was just family legend, perhaps a metaphor for some great loss, but never this literal." Her eyes, now moist, scanned the portrait, seeing it anew, her gaze lingering on the almost imperceptible outlines beneath Martha's face. It was as if a piece of their family puzzle, long lost to the mists of time, had suddenly snapped into place. Another family member, a man in his 50s, nodded slowly. "We've always had this framed photograph tucked away in an old album of a young woman who looked vaguely like our grandmother, but distinct. Nobody could ever quite place her. This is her, isn't it? Eleanor!" He pulled out his phone, quickly navigating to the image, and showed it to Dr. Reed. The resemblance was undeniable, striking. The hidden face Dr. Reed had meticulously uncovered, though partially obscured, was clearly the woman in the faded photograph, Eleanor. The room filled with a mix of sorrow and profound gratitude. Tears welled in the eyes of several family members. It was a moment of deep, collective emotional impact. They connected the hidden face not just to old, hushed family stories, but realized the magnitude of what Dr. Reed had resurrected: a forgotten ancestor, a tale of love that endured beyond death, and the often complex ways families navigate grief and new beginnings. They acknowledged the pain of the past, the quiet sacrifice perhaps made by Martha, and the tragic fate of Eleanor, but also deeply appreciated the restoration of their full, rich family history. The portrait, once a simple heirloom, had become a profound emotional archive, its layers speaking volumes about the human heart. They understood now that the story was not one of deceit, but of love and adaptation, a silent testament to the enduring power of family, even across generations. The family, initially reeling from the revelation, spent hours poring over the restored portrait, their fingers tracing the delicate lines of Eleanor's face, then moving to the serene visage of Martha. Dr. Reed's careful explanation of the historical context, the delicate brushstrokes that separated the two women, and the poignant story of loss and adaptation had resonated deeply. There were tears, hushed conversations, and a palpable sense of awe. The weight of generations of untold stories seemed to lift, replaced by a profound respect for the complex choices their ancestors had made. They understood now that the overlay wasn't an act of erasure, but a loving, if complicated, form of integration, a reflection of a family striving to find continuity amidst grief. After much discussion, and with a collective decision that felt both weighty and liberating, the family chose to embrace the full, complex narrative of their ancestors. They decided the portrait should not be hidden away, nor should one face be favored over the other. Instead, they would commission a special display, an exhibit that would honor both women, telling their individual stories and the incredible journey of the painting itself. A beautifully engraved plaque would accompany the artwork, detailing the restoration process, Dr. Reed's discovery, and the historical circumstances that led to Eleanor's original depiction and Martha's subsequent overlay. It would serve as a testament to love, loss, resilience, and the enduring power of family. This decision brought Dr. Reed an immense sense of accomplishment. Her work had transcended mere preservation. It had resurrected a forgotten life, and in doing so had offered a new layer of understanding and emotional richness to a living family. She wasn't just an art restorer, she was a historical detective, a mediator between past and present, a quiet facilitator of reconciliation. The portrait, once a static representation of a moment in time, had become a dynamic narrative, a conversation piece that spoke volumes about human experience. It was no longer just an 1881 family portrait. It was a living document, a testament to two mothers, two lives, intertwined by fate and preserved by art. The unveiling of the newly displayed portrait was a quiet affair, attended by the family and a few close friends, along with Dr. Reed herself. The lighting highlighted the subtle contours of both faces, allowing observers to appreciate the artistic skill that had both created and then meticulously revealed the layers of history. The plaque, positioned thoughtfully, invited contemplation rather than instant judgment. It spoke of Eleanor, the vibrant young mother whose life was cut tragically short. It spoke of Martha, the kind-hearted woman who stepped into a void, embracing another woman's children and legacy. And it spoke of the family's enduring love, capable of holding both grief and new beginnings within its embrace. Dr. Reed watched as family members, even the youngest generation, stood before the portrait, their expressions a mix of curiosity, sadness, and pride. They were learning about their origins in a way no textbook or family tree could ever convey, through the very brushstrokes that captured the essence of their ancestors. This was the true magic of art restoration, she realized, not just cleaning and repairing, but amplifying the voices of the past, allowing them to speak across centuries. She felt a profound sense of closure, not just for the painting, but for the untold story it now so eloquently shared. The experience with the 1881 family portrait solidified Dr. Reed's belief in the deeper purpose of her profession. Every brushstroke, every layer of pigment, every crack in the varnish held a secret, a fragment of human history waiting to be rediscovered. She knew there were countless other artworks tucked away in attics, hanging in quiet museums, or perhaps even still in active use that held similar hidden narratives. Each one represented an opportunity to connect with the past, to understand the motivations and emotions of those who came before us. As she drove away from the family estate, the sun setting in a brilliant blaze of orange and purple, Dr. Reed felt a renewed vigor for her work. The world was full of mysteries, and many of them resided not in ancient ruins or distant galaxies, but within the familiar confines of art. This particular project had been exceptionally challenging, requiring not only technical mastery but also a deep dive into historical research. and a sensitive approach to human emotion. It had pushed her boundaries, confirmed her instincts, and ultimately left her with an indelible sense of purpose. She already had a stack of new consultations awaiting her back at the studio: a faded Renaissance tapestry, a chipped porcelain vase from the Qing dynasty, a tarnished silver locket said to hold a lock of hair from a long-lost love. Each object, no matter how humble or grand, carried its own silent story, its own potential for discovery. And Dr. Reed, with her steady hands, her keen eye, and her empathetic heart, was ready to listen. This journey of revealing forgotten histories through art is what makes every day an adventure. What other secrets lie hidden beneath the layers of paint, within the fibers of ancient textiles, or etched into forgotten metals? The answers await those willing to look closer, to listen to the whispers of the past. If you've been captivated by Eleanor and Martha's story and share our passion for art's hidden narratives, please consider subscribing to our channel. There are so many more incredible stories waiting to be told, and your support helps us bring these historical treasures to life. Join us next time as we unravel another captivating mystery from the annals of art history. You won't want to miss what we uncover next. Perhaps a lost masterwork, or maybe, just maybe, another face peering out from beneath the canvas, waiting for its moment in the light. Thank you for joining us on this extraordinary journey.